Well, I guess people just don't see how we are all just one being on this planet. And if that's not physically true, then it's sure hell enough close to metaphorically true to mean that we're in dire straits. So, yeah, we've seen their one detonation on a massive scale that they've allowed us to see. And the other one is going on, even as I speak. I don't know, of all of the scenarios I've heard, I think that's about the scariest I've ever heard. Because that's not just them leaving. It's like, what the heck caused them? What is causing it? And there's, with that much extinctions, do you think there'd be only one cause? And do you think that with 50% of the world's living things leaving from all these different reasons, that like none of those reasons would be affecting us? No, that's the scariest thing I've ever heard of. Most likely. Anyway, that's my opinion. But my faith doesn't blind me to the incredible obstacles we face just in getting the truth out. You'd think the mainstream media would be all over this. The biggest story of all time, and with all of our lives in the balance. But apparently the mainstream media will not risk their ad revenue by openly reporting what is so well known, which will affect the profits of their corporate clients. So they might also say they might also say they do not want to create a hysteria and are concerned about upsetting the daily routines of people, which give people a sense of stability, familiarity, and hence comfort and pleasure in the feeling that they exist in a world that is manageable and within their abilities to make something of it. Kind of like, let's keep them pacified until the end. These are the things that they might say. But let's back up a bit to recapture another reason that these things are not being dealt with on the scale that they deserve in the media. I said it's not that they're not true. It's that these true things are, well, is there such a thing as too true? Well, what I meant is, since our species has never been confronted with such truths, it seems our systems have no capacity for it. Well, let's take a look at the media in that same light. We might say that they're human too. They don't have a capacity for taking in such horror. They don't know what to do with it either. And so someone in the media, and this is something I think y'all could understand. Some in the media, not knowing how to handle it, but knowing of it, might opt for a kind of grandmotherly comforting of the masses. You may be dying, but I'm going to tell you you're all right, and you're going to be all right, little boy. You're going to be all right, little girl, and offer you a little blanket for comfort. It's all right out of a war movie, for Christ's sakes. But, people, when they don't know what to do. Anyway, for how else can you explain the mainstream media's reinforcement of the feel-good rituals of our daily lives, when it is exactly those rituals that need to be tossed to the side? Just as when you are informed at your workplace that your house has caught fire, you toss out all rituals of the rest of your day at work, the market trip on the way home, the pleasant cup of tea at your elderly grandmother's while you wait for your wife to be ready to be picked up from work, and so on. No, you give not a second's thought to any of that, for you realize that your whole life has just been turned upside down, and nothing may matter afterwards that you think important now. So you rush to find out. You rush to the house without 1 second's delay. Just how badly your life has been overturned. You're wondering, were there any of your children at home at that time? Are any of them hurt, disabled, dead? Yeah, that is the kind of tragic event that our psyches have developed the capacity to process and to react to rationally. Since the evidence for doomsday has been accumulating for over 40 years, with many more lines of life termination added, generally the evidence being reinforced and confirmed and stating that earlier warnings and not stated as seriously as it required, and that in all these areas the tendencies are increasing, that the Doomsday Train is accelerating and approaching the point of uncontrollability, or one might say point of no return, point of inevitability, no chance at all. We're all, with all certainty, all going to die soon? Well, I wonder how many of those who bravely checked out this clip and started listening in are now elsewhere again. In fact, I don't know how I even am able to stare at these known horribles and not turn away or get increasingly depressed dealing with them. But then I do get depressed. I'm human. But I've also gone through primal therapy and received the tool of feeling my feelings, which has allowed me to process and increase my capacity to face the unfaceables. Mostly my doing something about it, like putting in my efforts into this right now, gives me hope. And I also have a firm faith in a really good, really loving God, universe, higher power, who loves all beings in a way that is far greater than we can imagine. I don't go to church, of course, because I haven't ever heard of one that knows of the God that I know, who is God by definition of God, whereas these religions almost universally define God the same way that I would, along the lines mentioned above, but then God only knows why. Perhaps religion is the construction of the control freaks who cannot simply accept unconditional, universal, loving acceptance and regard for all God's creatures. Too simple. And so reduce the grandeur of God to that of the petty codification more applicable to societal legal tenets of prescription, and punishment. So I don't go to those religions that define God as less than, who end up seeing God through their own eyes and not trying to strive to see God the way He's described Himself, as all-knowing, all-loving, infinitely loving, and infinitely merciful. So I'm offended when they bring Him down to anything less than that. And I sure feel they do. Now, and maybe the greatest strength I have comes from having a spiritual teacher in India, who is regarded throughout the world and by people of all religions as being a Puna avatar. It took me about 10 years to overcome my skepticism. I was brought up Catholic. But eventually I was taught, through inner and outer experience, of the profound supernatural wisdom, power, but most of all, of this supreme spiritual being's unbridled and unfailing love for all. And this is a real person. You can go see him. You could touch him. I'm not talking about some Indian saint or imagined spiritual person. Anyway, his unfailing love for all is for all, and by that I mean his devotees, all humans on this planet, as well as all living creatures everywhere. This phenomenon, who has been teaching for over 50 years, well, like 60 now, and has had knowledge, even foreknowledge, of the events during that time, of the kind that no one, except someone who had actually been privy to some of the most secretive meetings during that era, could have known. Well, in addition to having that knowledge, which it's hard to explain except that he's got some powers that we don't know of yet, he has also predicted the end of an era occurring right now. It's right in keeping with Hindu literature, by the way, with the Hindu cosmology. But in Hindu literature, it's called the Kali Yuga, and it's not unusual. It seems their idea of the cosmos is that it goes around in 4 yugas endlessly throughout time. At any rate, this is like, in Hindu literature, this Kali Yuga is an incredible transition time.